At first, he didn't ignore her on purpose.
It wasn't a strategy. It wasn't a game. It just happened. He was busy, focused on his own life,
His routine, his priorities,
and when her message came in, he saw it.
but he didn't feel the need to reply immediately,
So he waited, not to create tension, not to manipulate anything.
but simply because he had other things to do. And that small moment, that simple delay, changed everything. Because up until that point, the dynamic was very clear.
She was used to his attention, used to his replies, used to his presence. Every time she texted, he was there, consistent,
Available.
predictable. And when something becomes predictable, it loses a part of its impact. Not because it's bad, but because it's expected.
And expectation removes tension. So when he didn't reply right away, something shifted.
Not dramatically, not consciously, but emotionally. She noticed, maybe not immediately,
But enough to feel it. Enough to register that something was different.
and difference creates curiosity.
Because now, her expectation didn't match reality.
So she checked again,
Still no reply.
and that's when something interesting happened.
Her attention shifted.
From whatever she was doing, to him, because uncertainty pulls focus.
It creates questions. It creates interest. It creates engagement.
And that's the part most men never understand. It wasn't the fact that he ignored her, it was the fact that the pattern changed. Because patterns create comfort.
But broken patterns create attention. And attention is where attraction lives.
So after some time, he replied. Simple, normal,
No overthinking.
no extra effort, just a regular response. But now, the dynamic was slightly different, because she had already felt that shift.
She had already experienced that moment of uncertainty.
And that changed how she perceived him, but enough to create tension.
And tension is what keeps interactions alive.
So the conversation continued, but something subtle had changed. She was slightly more engaged.
Slightly more attentive. He was simply not losing himself in the process, and that's the key. Because most men do the opposite. They receive attention, and they immediately focus on it. They prioritize it. They react to it.
They give it importance, and slowly, their entire behavior starts revolving around that person.
They reply faster. They initiate more. They think more. They invest more.
And without realizing it, they remove all uncertainty,
All tension.
all space. And when that happens, attraction fades,
Not because they did something wrong.
but because the dynamic becomes flat.
But when he didn't reply immediately, he kept that space. Not intentionally, but naturally.
And that space allowed the interaction to breathe,
To evolve.
to stay dynamic.
So over the next few days, something interesting happened.
He didn't change. He didn't suddenly become distant. He just remained consistent with himself,
Replying when he wanted.
focusing on his life.
Not over-investing.
And because of that, the dynamic stayed balanced. Sometimes he would text first, sometimes he would, and that balance created stability,
Not the kind of stability that kills attraction.
but the kind that sustains it, because both sides were engaged, but neither side was dependent.
And that's the difference. Because dependency kills attraction, but presence builds it.
And then, something else happened. She started investing more, not dramatically.
But noticeably.
Longer messages,
More questions. More engagement.
because now, she wasn't just receiving attention, she was experiencing uncertainty. She was feeling the dynamic. She was participating in it. And that made the interaction more real.
More alive. More interesting. But here's the most important part.
He didn't do anything special. He didn't use a technique. He didn't follow a strategy. He simply didn't lose his position.
He didn't make her the center of his world. He didn't become reactive.
He didn't start chasing. And that's why everything worked.
Because attraction is not about doing more.
It's about not losing what made you attractive. Your independence, your focus, your emotional stability. And the moment you lose those, everything else starts to collapse. So when people say, he ignored her and she came back, they misunderstand the situation.
Because it's not about ignoring.
It's about not over-investing, not reacting,
Not losing yourself.
and that's a completely different thing.
Because ignoring as a tactic comes from the same place as chasing.
It's still reactive,
It's still focused on controlling the outcome.
but what he did was different. He stayed grounded, he stayed focused, He stayed in control of himself, and that's what changed the dynamic. So the real lesson is simple, not easy,
But simple. When you receive attention, don't lose yourself in it.
Don't shift your entire focus. Don't start reacting to every small change. Stay consistent with who you are.
Stay focused on your life. Stay grounded in your priorities, because the moment you do that, you maintain your position.
And when you maintain your position, everything else flows naturally. No games, no strategies,
No manipulation.
just a balanced dynamic. And that's where real attraction lives.